Good day everyone. Today I am going to discuss to you the different models of communication. But before anything else, let me introduce myself. My name is Nova Jane Hongko Sampilo. I am taking Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in Social Science at the University of Antique. I am your teacher in training. Before we proceed to the models of communication, let us define first what is communication. Communication is derived from two Latin words, communicare or communico, which means to share. It is defined as an exchange of thoughts, ideas, opinions, and feelings between two persons. So basically, we can say that communication is composed of different elements. These different elements can be the sender, the receiver, the message, the barrier, or later on we are going to discuss what are these elements that compose the communication. So we are going to proceed now to the different models of communication. As human beings, we always keep on communicating. Take a look at these pictures. These pictures show that communication is part of our lives. In fact, we spend a large percentage of our working hours in communicating, and even if we are in silence, we are also conveying a message to the people around us, right? But how come? Let us say, for example, me. I am speaking in front of you. I am conveying a message, so I am communicating. So this is an example of communication. The communication is part of our lives, and I think we cannot survive without communicating with each other. Let us now proceed to the importance of communication models. Are the communication models significant? Yes, definitely, of course. Familiarizing ourselves with the communication models will help us know about the various aspects of communications. So what are these various aspects of communication? Later on, we are going to find out what are these aspects. Second, essential elements of communication processes are presented through the communication model. Yes, these elements will help us identify or know the importance of communication. Through these elements, we can have an effective communication. Third, such models help us to measure the effectiveness of communication. Yes, these models of communication will enable you to know what is the level of effectiveness of your communication and how can you be able to have that effective communication. So here are the different models of communication that will help us understand the process of human connection. So I am going to present to you the 5 communication models. First, we have the Aristotle's model of communication. Second, the Laswell's models of communication. Third, the Shannon-Weaver's model of communication. Fourth, the Strom's models of communication. And the Perl's model of communication. So through this lesson, I am going to show you the proponents, the importance, and the elements that are presented to these different models of communication. I am also going to show you some examples so that you can further understand what are the communication models about. So I am going to discuss to you first the Aristotle's model of communication. So the proponent of this model of communication is obviously Aristotle. So who doesn't know Aristotle? Aristotle, an ancient Greek philosopher. He is the proponent of the earliest model of communication, which is known as Aristotle's model of communication. So, in this model of communication, Aristotle stressed the importance of the audience in the communication process. So, this model focuses on public speaking rather than the interpersonal communication. So, we need to remember that this communication is the earliest mass communication model, and it was made by Aristotle himself. Next, what are the elements that are presented in the Aristotle's model of communication? So there are actually 5 elements. First, we have the speaker. Second, the speech. Third, the occasion. Fourth, the audience. And the effect. So take a look at this. This is how Aristotle constructed the model of communication, his model of communication. As you can see, we have first the speaker. The speaker then sends a speech As you can still remember, Aristotle emphasizes the importance of public speaking here. So we have a speech as the message, as an element. Next, we have the occasion. So there should be an occasion that or an event so that this communication model will take place. Fourth, we have the audience, of course. So we have to remember that the audience is the most important element in this model of communication. And last, the effect. So here is an example of Aristotle's model of communication. In this sentence, we are going to identify the 5 elements presented in the communication model. So first, we are going to identify the speaker. Next, the speech. Third, the occasion. Fourth, the audience, and the effect. So what do you think, or who do you think is the speaker in this sentence? Obviously, Miss Sanchez is the speaker in this example. The speech. What is the speech? So the speech is the lecture. It is the message, the element speech. And the third is the occasion. What do you think is the occasion? Of course, we have the speech class. And the audience are the students. And the effect is that they have to overcome stage fright. So we are going to proceed now to the second model of communication, which is the Laswell's model of communication. So who do you think is the proponent of this model of communication? So we have Harold Dwight Laswell. So he is an American political scientist that states that a convenient way to describe an act of communication is to answer the following questions. So what do you think are these questions? So these questions are the who, the says what, in which channel, the whom, or in, and in what effect. So he also presented 5 elements in his. So take a look with this. This is how Laswell presented his communication model. First, we have the question who. So this question who is the element communicator. Next, we have the question says what. Actually, this says what element is the element message. Third, in which channel? Of course, it is the medium or the channel. Fourth, we have to whom. It obviously means the receiver, and with what effect. Just like Aristotle, he also 5 elements of communication presented in his model of communication. So here is an example of Laswell's model of communication. CNN News. A water leak from Japan's tsunami crippled nuclear power station resulted in about 100 times the permitted level of radioactive material flowing into the sea. Operator Tokyo Electric Power Co. said on Saturday. So just like what we did in the Aristotle's model of communication example, we are also going to find out what are these elements presented in that sentence. First, we are going to find out the who, the element who. So obviously we have TEPC or the Tokyo Electric Power Co. as the communicator. Second, what is the element what? So this element, what is the message or the message is radioactive material flowing into the sea. Third, in what channel? So this channel could be the medium, or what did the communicator uses to communicate to his senders, to his receivers, I mean. So he used CNN News or the television medium. Fourth, we have the whom or the element receivers. So of course, the public. And lastly, what is the effect to the people? Of course, it is to alert the people on Japan from the radiation. So the third model of communication is the Shannon-Weaver's model of communication. So the difference of this communication model is that it has 2 proponents. First, we have Claude Shannon and Warren Weaver. So Claude Shannon is an American mathematician, while Warren Weaver is a scientist. So this communication model was created in 1948 when Claude Shannon wrote an article entitled A Mathematical Theory of Communication. So this model is particularly designed to develop effective communication between the sender and the receiver. So unlike the Aristotle communication and the Laswell's model of communication, so this communication model emphasizes the sender and the receiver. So in this model, noise is an important factor. So we have to remember that noise is a very important factor in this communication model. So which affect the communication process. So according to this model, the noise affects the communication process. It affects the effectivity of the communication. So at first, model was conceived to improve technical communication, but later on, it has been widely used in the field of communication. So here are the 6 elements presented in the Shannon-Weaver's communication models. So these elements are sender, encoder, channel, decoder, receiver, and noise. So take a look with this. This is how Shannon and Weaver presented their communication model. So we have the sender or the information source. So next we have the encoder or the transmitter. Third we have the channel. So in the channel, noise takes place in the channel. And fourth we have the decoder or the reception, and last we have the receiver or destination. As you can see, the arrow is just going back. The arrow from the receiver is just going back to the sender because this communication model is a process. It is a repeatedly process. So we have here another example of Shannon-Weaver's communication model. So in this sentence states that Thompson made the call to his assistant. "Come here, I want to see you." During his call, noise appeared or the transmission error, and his assistant received, "I want only." Again, assistant asked Thompson, this is the feedback now, "What do you want, Thompson?" So we are going to identify the different elements presented in this example. First, we have the sender. Who do you think is the sender? Of course, we have Thompson as the sender. Encoder is the telephone, so they use telephone as the encoder. Next is the channel. So the channel used or the medium used is the cable. Next is the noise. So what do you think is the noise? The noise is the distraction in voice. So during the transmission, there was a noise or the transmission error. Next, we have the decoder, or his assistant also uses telephone as the decoder, and the receiver is the assistant. So we have now our fourth model of communication. So this communication model is Scrum's model of communication. So who do you think is the proponent of this communication model? Of course, we have Wilbur Scrum. So this model addresses the sociological aspect involved in communication. So unlike everyone else, Scrum's only presented the basic elements, or he only gave us the basic elements in this communication model. So I have the source or the sender, next the message or the signal, and the destination or the decoder. So, Scrum's model of communication stresses the importance of encoding and decoding processes in an effective communication. So, according to Scrum, if you want to have an effective communication, you have to take note the decoding and encoding process. So he believed that an individual's knowledge, experience, and cultural background also plays a vital role in communication. He also pointed that communication is incomplete without the feedback from the recipient. Moreover, he believed that communication is actually a two-way process between the source and the receiver. So why do you think two-way process? Two-way process because the sender will send a message and the receiver will also have its feedback. That's why it is a two-way communication or two-way process. So this is how Wilbur Scrums presented his model of communication. So we have here like a diagram that presents the source, the encoder, the decoder, and the destination. So as you can see, we have here the field of experience. As you can still remember, sociological aspect is very important in this model of communication because this sociological aspect will determine how the communication will be sent or how effective will be the communication process. Lastly, we have the Berlus model of communication. So who do you think is the proponent of this communication model? So we have David Verlo. David Verlo is the pioneered this model of communication, or the SMCR communication model, in 1960. He emphasized the relationship between the sender and the receiver of the message. According to this model, for the message to be accurately encoded and encoded, the communication skills of both sender and the receiver must be at their best. The communication will be remarkably successful only if the two individuals possess the necessary skills. Berlus model has 4 components, and each component has its own subcomponents that support each element. SMCR actually stands for source, message, channel, and receiver. So, according to this communication model, the source and the receiver should have communication skills, attitudes, knowledge, social system, and culture. So the sender and receiver should take note on these necessary skills in order to have an effective communication. Next, we have the element message. So the element message, we have to consider the content, the elements, the treatment, the structure, and the code. And the element channel, in this element, you have to consider the following: the hearing, the seeing, touching, smelling, and tasting. So this is all about the Berlus model of communication. So here are my references. So if you have any questions, you are free to comment down below if you have necessary questions or clarifications. If you don't understand anything, don't hesitate to ask questions. So that ends my report about the different models of communication. Thank you for listening. Once again, I am Nova Jane Hongko Sampilo, taking Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in Social Science.